Practice. That's pretty big. Go ahead and put you on. And you want to read your follow up with the code. Yeah. So this one is. They actually teach you translates and takes you into that next. It's time to a lot of things and push. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Well, she's really good on all these ones. She was a third. I practiced. Yeah. And then, like I said, those things. Right. So, do you want to be next Tuesday? Yeah. Okay.
Like I'm thankful I don't go to school with like 200 people. There's some people.
Have a good one. And you have a song? We're good.
No, because the kids were over from school. So yeah, I think they're just there.
My fingerprints on it.
Yeah, last night at work. Should have ended.
That I was eating wings and
That fucking thing by my ear came back.
well, did you start clicking it?
No, I popped it. No, I didn't do it on purpose, but as soon as like I folded my ear to see it, it started oozing out. So.
There was one.
All right, young scholars, tonight we're going to cover a little bit about JavaScript and jQuery. Next week, we'll also touch on JavaScript as well. And then on the 12th, you guys will all be doing your presentation in class. I just wanted to point out that even though there's no homework for this evening, you're more than welcome to go ahead and do that podcast assignment, which is in the 1212 folder. And if you go back and look through the second PowerPoint deck in the 1114 folder, it gives you some links to possible podcasts you may want to listen to for the podcast assignment. But that one is not due until the 18th, I believe, of December. So you're more than welcome to do it this week, a little early,
I actually meant to
if you
say
so
something.
choose.
Yo, I don't think she follows me anymore.
Since going forward, you still have
I just
the
haven't seen anything
your
from her.
website project to put together, your
I
presentation to put
did.
together, and next week there'll
totally
be
forgot.
a JavaScript homework assignment. So
I'm like, yo, I haven't heard of Sky in a minute.
So what is JavaScript? You may remember a couple weeks ago, my example was that HTML is the house,
Why?
CSS is the paint on the walls, and JavaScript is the furniture. So it's an object-based scripting language. It works with the objects associated with a web page document, such as the window, the document itself, and the elements within it, such as forms, images, hyperlinks, videos, etc. So what is JavaScript? Well, it was originally developed by Netscape, which was a web browser years ago that basically Firefox ultimately replaced. So while JavaScript is not necessarily Java, it's derived from Java. You'll see a lot of the same components, objects, methods, classes, etc., that you will have seen within Java programming. So what are the common uses of JavaScript? Well, you could display a message box. You could use it for list navigation. You can edit and validate form information. You can create a new window. You could use it for image rollovers, status messages, display current dates, calculations. So Dylan, give me an example of a status message you've seen before.
You stepping back up after when you drop everything off or no?
So a status message, for instance, might be like something that indicates whether someone is online or not on the chat application, or just like a notification from like an email message or something on a website.
Okay. Well, what's a common one you saw when you were younger? You went to your school district's website. What's something that might have popped up as a status message?
Like a new, like their new, when a homework assignment is due or something on like the Schoology platform or something.
Okay, but the school district itself, think of something like that. What kind of message might pop up on their homepage?
Whether school is closed or not.
Okay, yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's no
like a
way.
snow day. Like, oh, okay, we're having a delayed opening. It would pop up a message over what's usually there on the screen, right? When you're coding with JavaScript, you're going to use this script tag. Just like with cascading style sheets, your CSS, where we have the style tag, instead we have the script tag here. And all of your JavaScript code can be placed within that. So you'll have your script tag opened here. And all your JavaScript code goes in the middle. And then you'd have your closing script tag. And I'll show you guys an example, and I'll write a note here. One of the most common JavaScripts is an onClick, where you click something and something happens. So as you saw when we used our CSS code, that code we tend to prefer to be put within our body tag. This way it's interpreted correctly within the web browser. Whereas with JavaScript, you can basically place it anywhere as long as it's within that HTML tag. So when you utilize the script element, you're usually going to have a container tag. Can be placed either in the head, body, wherever within the web page, as long as it's within that specific part of the HTML tag, as long as it's inside the web page, in essence. So in this example code, script, alert, welcome to our site, script, what do you think is going to happen?
If we're missing the script tag,
No, if we have this code within our HTML, script, alert, welcome to our site, and then close script.
then the alert welcome to our site would show up presumably.
Yeah, we're going to have a pop-up that's going to say, welcome to our site. We've talked about this previously, the document object model. So it's going to define every object and element on a web page, hierarchical, up through, starts at the top, goes down, accesses page elements, and applies styles to those page elements. So it, in essence, allows us to use various languages to work together. Our HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and also allows us to find aspects of HTML using JavaScript. So we could, in essence, set up an element within our HTML code and then use JavaScript to go find it. Where's the header? Where's this text that said Bob? Where's this text that said George? So here is a setup of how that specifically looks. And you've seen this before. We have our initial window, which is the entire screen. We have the document, we have information about its history, its location, and how we're going to navigate it. And it goes down the line. Where's our source for our image? Where's our source for our web page? What kind of elements are involved with the HTML code? So an object is a thing or an entity. You probably remember that from Java programming. In HTML, an object could be your browser window, a submit button, a specific web page document. All completely different things, right? Browser window, you can open different web pages. Submit button is an on-click, will allow you to do something specific. And a web page document is basically just a file that you're creating, which can specifically be an object. Objects may have specific properties associated with them. So a document can have a background color. A document can have date or information associated with when it is modified. An object is also going to have a source associated. So in this specific instance, we have an image 1 with a source. Where is it? It may be in the images folder. It may be in your, let's say, just IMG folder up on your specific page. So the document.bg color sets your background color of that specific web page. So you might want it to be blue, you might want it to be black. When you use that JavaScript code, it will tell you what that background color is set as. Last modified will tell you what or when your page was last modified. So you'll remember a method from Java. So even though JavaScript is not Java, it's derived from Java. It's very similar. So in this example, document.write is calling that method, which will allow you to do what?
Allow you to write text to a web page document.
So by calling that .write, calling this method allows you to add or write specific information to that document.
It's okay.
So if we want to say, you know, Bob is happy,
It's fine. I'm sorry. No, don't be sorry.
Ow, this thing is killing me.
we wanted to say Bob is happy. We put that within our method inside quotes because it's a string. And it would then write to the document whatever your specific page is. Bob is happy. The second example allows us to create a submit button for this form.1. So form1.submit allows us to create a submit button for a form we've created called form1. So it's pretty similar to Java. We're calling that method to do something for us. So the write method allows us to write to the document. The submit method allows us to, or allows basically something to happen when we select that submit button on that form. And this is what I was mentioning before about the example of an on-click. I'll post up on Blackboard. There's a video I have from a while ago that you guys can look at. I think it just changes like the text size on a website. So like Java, JavaScript has certain built-in classes or packages. So one of them is this specific on-click. And it allows us to basically have something happen when we click on something. So say I were to click on this button, it hides everybody's video screen there. So that is an example of an on-click. So I click one of these other options on Zoom. That is also an on-click. Something happens on the click. Then you would also have on mouse over, which places the mouse on an element. You go over, you mouse over, something happens. On mouse out removes the mouse from an element. So you'll notice the difference. We have the cursor instead of the mouse there. On load is what happens when you go to a web page and it starts loading. On unload is the opposite of that. You go to a web page, you click the X on the side, and your status bar on the web browser stops it from loading. So here is an example of what happens, the event and the event handler, what your specific JavaScript method is to do that. So the event handler is that class, and the event is what occurs. For example, mouse over triggers something to occur when you scroll your mouse over it. So I scroll over here on Zoom. It gives me the option to unmute you. On click, if I were to click, ask to unmute, something occurs. The click causes something, some kind of reaction. So you can also use these in combination. So in this example code, we have a specific web page, home.htm, or a link, if you will, on your status bar. So we might have home here. Home about. Let's say links. So what this specific code here would do is if we had our mouse scroll over that home link, it would give us a pop-up that said, click to go home. That's specifically what our JavaScript code here is doing. So like I said before, you can embed your JavaScript code within any part of that specific web page. Doesn't matter if it's in the header, body, as long as it's within your HTML tags, you can have it anywhere. So you could have any specific page with a mouse over like that. So you could, let's say you had 8 different links on your navigation bar. You could literally set every one of them up to have a mouse over like this. Click to go home. Click to go to about. Click to go to links. Click to go to customers. Click to go to, let's say, Dylan's website example, new patients. All of your specific navigation links could be set up with that specific mouse over code. So just like when you're using Java, JavaScript may feature syntax errors preventing it from running correctly. So you might have to debug or fix it. So you're going to check the syntax of your statements, make sure that there's upper and lowercase letters, spaces, quotations, that everything is in the same spot that it needs to be. You verify that you've saved the page with the most recent changes. You don't want those errors that you just fixed to still be there. You verify that you test the most recent version of the page. Okay, we have our .html file. Let's see how it loads on Google Chrome. Let's see how it loads on Firefox. Let's see how it loads on Safari. So if you get an error message when you load it, you should use the error messages displayed by the browser and check them. So in Firefox, for example, you can select Tools and check that error console. So more tools, remote debugging, web developer tools, etc., available to you within Firefox. So just like in Java, JavaScript will give you a general idea of where the error is, but it might not be exact. So when you're compiling a Java program, it may say, oh, there's an error on line 66. Okay, so now you know where to look, but it doesn't tell you exactly what the issue is. You might have, hey, I didn't put a semicolon at the end of that statement. Sometimes it's more obvious than others. So that's why most people will check when you're using JavaScript within the Firefox web browser. Because as I just showed you, they have those web developer tools. It will literally show you, okay, there's an error on line 18. Go look at line 18, check what you messed up. What are you missing? Again, it may not be exact, but it give you a general area. Like it'll say line 18 maybe, and the error might be on line 16. But you're looking at that general area. So you see, oh, okay, I didn't close the method here. I don't have it within the script tag here. I need to modify and then recheck it. So here's an example of a Firefox instance. So what do you think the error is here? No one? Dylan, do you know?
Let's see. I think that the term that you're using a alert instead of just alert.
Yep. So we don't have an AA alert. It's not defined. We misspelled it. So we more than likely within our code would have an alert defined. For example, we showed what slide was it? Display message here on slide 17. Notice alert. It's just a mouse over alert. Click to go. So if we misspelled it, a alert, that's going to give us that error. We don't have an A alert defined. It doesn't exist. So we modify, we get rid of that extra A, we refresh after we saved, and we're no longer going to have that at reference error. We have a proper alert now. Think of it this way. When you're typing something in Microsoft Word, maybe you're typing it too fast. What happens in Microsoft Word that helps you with any spelling errors that came up? It's going to underline it or make it like a weird looking color, and you click on it. Oh, okay. And then you select the fixed text, right? So variables in JavaScript are used similarly to Java. So we create a variable called username, and then we assign that username an actual text, in this case, Karen, and then document.write with that variable. So what does that do? What would that do?
That would store a variable called username that's assigned to the phrase Karen.
It's going to take this username that we've assigned the string Karen to, and it's going to write it into that document. So now, at least just based on these 3 lines of code, the only thing written on that document, that web page, is going to be the name Karen. So if we added two more variables and then defined each of them
Yeah.
let's say Bob,
I gotta go out to my car, get my phone.
and let's say the last one's going to be Dylan, just, Bob Dylan. Make it easy. If we then added
Yeah. Okay, bye.
those usernames, those 2 no ones we created, now what's in the document?
All 3 usernames.
All 3 of those names, yep. So Karen, Bob, and Dylan will all be listed within that document. So again, we're using that write method or function to add those 3 names into our document. You could also use the prompt method within JavaScript, which will display a message and accept a value from the user. So what is this similar to in Java? This is in essence the same as your system.out.println from Java. So you would have a prompt message, something like, oh, are you enjoying this website, for example? And you may give the user the option to select some kind of response. Then that response is stored. So let's say you want to know, hey, does this website need to be updated? You may have that prompt set up. Let's say 10 people say yes and 2 people say no. You look at the data behind the scenes. Oh, okay. 10 out of the 12 people that visited this site said I needed updated. So you're going to use that information and go behind and fix up anything that needs to be updated on the website. So just like in Java, you can utilize arithmetic operators. So if you use the equal sign, you're assigning your variable to something. So quantity equals 10. The value of quantity is now 10. Same thing with addition. Quantity equals 10 plus 6. Well, that's 16. Subtraction, quantity equals 10 minus 6, 4. Multiplication, quantity equals 10 times 2, 20. Division, quantity equals 10 divided by 2, 5. What would happen if I had a line of code, quantity equals 4, and then the next line said quantity equals 5? Who remembers from Java what would happen there?
If you do quantity equals 10 and then quantity equals 5, then it just changes the quantity from 10 to 5.
Quantity equals 5. Quantity equals 4. What does that do?
It just reassigns quantity to 4 from 5.
Okay. So that second one is what the
Yep.
variable is now. It overwrites whatever you had initially. There are also other operators that you can use, just like you did within Java, called comparison operators. Equals equals means that it's the exact equivalence of. So if you have quantity equals equals, yep, it's definitely 10. Your greater than sign. A quantity greater than 10 has to be 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. Can't be less than 10, has to be more. Greater than or equal, it can be 10, as well as every number above it. Less than, the opposite than greater than, obviously. And you would know that less than or equal to is the opposite of greater than or equal to. But then you could have the not equal to, which is just an exclamation point before the equal sign. So quantity, exclamation point, equals 10. Literally means that your quantity can be any number but 10. It cannot be equal to 10. You could also use decision making or decision statements, as they're called within Java. So it operates similar, where if one condition is not met, the other condition occurs. So if Dylan did not show up to class today, something happens. Otherwise, something else happens. Your if else. We talked about this earlier. Functions, you could use specific statements within them, and they're only run when needed. So we could have function, function name, and then whichever statements within. So just like your Java, you have your class, methods, functions, etc. You can have them also all within your JavaScript code. So here's an example of how you would use that function. So we're creating a new function here called showAlert. That alert will pop up and say, please click OK. So then you call to implement the function. So showAlert, okay? Now you go on that web page. It immediately pops up with this alert. Please click OK to continue. So what happens if you don't click OK? If you just let that alert hang there without clicking OK, it's just going to sit there. The alert's going to block you from going to the actual web page. So then when you click the OK button, it's an on click, something happens. Okay, now the rest of the page loads. You see specifically what you want to look at. So form validation is similar to what you saw with PHP. It's used to protect form info, but it also used to validate our specific information. So if you're asking for a name, email, a comment, you can use JavaScript to check, okay, does this actually look like a name? Is this actually an email? Is it like hotmail.com, Google or gmail.com, fdu.edu? So it would check that specific formatting you've set. So let's say you put a phone number. How many numbers is that? You could set it to just check the 10 specific numbers are there. You could set it to check the specific format, 3-3-4. So, for example, if you're on a web page, it might ask you for like the last 4 of your social. It may ask you for the full information of your social. It may be set up to just specifically have, okay, just put all the numbers in.
Yeah.
Or it may be like, okay, put your first 3 dash, put the second 2 dash, put the last 4. You could do the same thing with a phone number to validate. Okay, is this actually a phone number? Okay, is this actually an email? So in this example, we're checking to validate to make sure that the individual put in a name. You know, everybody has a name, so it must be submitted. If you don't put it in, JavaScript will give you an error. You know, think of forms with required info. If you don't fill it out, there's like a pop-up like in red, like, oh, okay, make sure you put this info. That's what this alert will do. If you don't put in your name, you'll get a pop-up, name field cannot be empty. So think of like when you're registering, let's say on Reddit or some like Amazon, for example. It'll give you some kind of error. Oh, you're missing this field. Go back and fill it in. So we mentioned before how different web browsers react differently. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned to you before how years ago when Internet Explorer existed, you'd have to create additional CSS and JavaScript files in order to make sure that your web page actually worked on Internet Explorer because it was a little different. These days, Microsoft Edge has replaced Internet Explorer. But you also may run into the fact that some people may have JavaScript disabled on their specific web browser. So it's just going to show specific plain text. Whatever your JavaScript is applied to is not going to run properly. So say you had JavaScript to have a mouse over on all of your navigation links. If they don't have JavaScript enabled, when they scroll over on those links, nothing is going to happen. There's not going to be that mouse over event. Some people set this up because of accessibility issues. They're not able to use their mouse. They may use a text reader or something different in order to navigate a web page rather than, you know, scrolling around and using the mouse like I am in this example. So jQuery allows you to write less JavaScript code that will still run and load. In essence, when you use like your import within Java, that is in essence what jQuery does. All right, there's already this package, this class available for us to use. We'll just import it in. So the most common uses of jQuery are to add or enhance CSS properties of elements, to detect and react to events such as those mouse over, beyond clicks, and can even help us animate elements on a web page, such as creating slideshows. So in essence, what you would do is download and put it on your server or import it like you would in Java, but it's going to be a little different. Instead of your import java.util.scanner, for example, you would actually have to know the entire link for that specific package that you want to import. So in this example, okay, we're importing jQuery, this minimum .javascript file. So obviously for brand new users of JavaScript, that's going to be pretty difficult, right? How the heck do I know where this package that I need to import is? So that's why it's more common for individuals to just download jQuery in its entirety and then put it up on your server. Okay, now I have everything jQuery available to me. I can just call the functions as I need rather than continuously import different packages. Because like I said, as a brand new user to jQuery, you're not going to be able to know every package you need to import for specific things you're going to do with your page. You may not know where this API is. So a ready event runs on page load once jQuery and JavaScript are verified and interpreted. So something happens. Okay, ready, set, go. You'll notice at the beginning here, there's a $sign. When we cover JavaScript again next week, we'll talk more about that and show examples. But that's generally the primary difference between CSS and JavaScript. Most JavaScript code is going to have that $sign in front of it to verify. So you're going to have your $sign, your document, whatever it's called, .ready is your method, and then your function may be within that. And then you're going to have your statements. What happens when this method is called? For example, document.write, what happens was we added something into the document. We wrote something to it, like those 3 names in the prior example. So here's a visual representation of if we created a new alert that said ready for jQuery. Okay, it gives us a little pop-up, ready for jQuery. Once an alert is added, a pop-up is created with that text. It's commonly used to test whether your web browser has JavaScript enabled or not. So if we don't click that OK button, we're not going to be able to access the web page itself. So a lot of times that alert, like I said, will be used to test that JavaScript is enabled in the web browser. Other times it may be used basically to say, hey, do you really want to go on this web page? Are you sure? And they'll give you that specific alert to test out and make sure that you actually want to do so. So a jQuery selector indicates which one of those document object model elements that is going to be affected. The most commonly ones are an asterisk, which serves as a wildcard. It allows you to use all elements. LI, who remembers what LI is abbreviated for? LI is just short for list. It will apply to any list elements within your HTML. My class, we created a class called my class. Only that will be impacted. My ID, you created a ID selector. Nav A, all of your potential links within your navigation bar. First, all right, what's first in our HTML file? That's what that applies to. Odd, okay, 1, 3, 5, 7, only applies to every other item within a potential list. So say you created a list element with 21 links there. It would go 1, 3, 5, 7, etc., and only apply to those every other options there. So there are similarly methods you can call within jQuery. That's why you want to have the jQuery downloaded and put on your server, as opposed to having to go through and find every specific package or API you may want to download. So here are examples. Click provides you with an event handler. You click, something happens. CSS allows you to modify or enhance specific CSS code. Hover, okay, what happens on a mouse over event? I go over, up, now I can see these options on my screen on Zoom. I can mute myself, I can unmute Dylan, I can ask to unmute Rob, etc. We can also add attributes to our HTML, to each of our specific lines of code. We can toggle, we can bounce back and forth between different elements within the HTML code. So the reason you would want to use a clicked option within your page is it allows interactivity. You can also modify CSS within your JavaScript code. So rather than having a style section and a script section, you could write it all within your specific JavaScript. So in this example, the potential click button has been assigned this color. So you have, okay, let's say a list of 5 options here. Every even option within that click has been assigned this color. You could then add an additional line of code to set your color to something else for the odd options. So let's say whatever that color is, as an example. So now you've added even more CSS code. So now you have even one color, odd another color. But that's only going to happen on your specific click. So here's an example. If you're to use odd and make it green in this example, okay, once you click that function, you click that button, the function is run, and now all of the odd members in that list have been changed to a specific color. So it invokes that specific code, changing all of the odd numbers within the list to that specific green. And like I said, you could do it where you change both even and odd. So where if you were to click the click me button, let's say the odds turn into green, you could have the even turn into, let's say, orange, for example. So toggle allows you to change between different options, often tied to a specific onclick. Who remembers what statement within Java would be the same as toggle? It starts with an S. You never learned switch statements with Java? So the toggle method is in essence the same as switch within Java. Okay, we do this, we do that, we bounce back and forth between our different specific options. So here would be an example of a toggle method being implemented. And you might see this a lot of times on interactive websites. You might have, let's say, a blog post, and you only see like the first paragraph or so. You click on that more. See, we have that more function. Then it provides us with our specific details. Okay, then we get a whole new paragraph pop up once we click that more hyperlink. So in essence, until we click that more, the additional details or information there have been hidden from us. We can also do the same thing by using jQuery to implement or modify an image gallery. And this is the most common use of jQuery, to create image galleries to avoid optimization and load issues like we discussed earlier in the semester. So we create a variable where we have that link. We create another variable where we assign what the title is. So then you have an example of a small image gallery here. So you would have these 6 images available. Every time you click one of those images, it gets bigger on the right-hand side with the title below it. So this first one you click, it would say Golden Gate Bridge. The second one you click, let's say it says, swampy area. The third one you click, say it says, gorgeous inlet. The fourth one you click, it may say, wonderful sunset. The fifth one you click, the title may say, look at that sky. And then this last one, I don't know, what does that look like? Like a pool? Let's just say it's a pool. So you click that last one, and you may say, oh, we enjoyed our swim as the title. So all of this code would be specifically assigned that way. All right, what's our title for it? Where is it located? What's our hyperlink reference? And there are specific plugins available as well that allow you to do that same thing with a slideshow. In that instance, you're going to display images and text that move across the screen. So see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. So instead of like this way, where they're all on the left-hand side and you click them and they become bigger with the title below it, another way of doing that slideshow is having them all be big with that text, the title below it, and you use left and right cursors to click back and forth between the 6 images. So this is what we mentioned earlier about the specific validations that you can use with jQuery and JavaScript. So this was mentioned back on slide 31. If you fail to put in your information, it prevents the form from being submitted. So a lot of times what will be done on a specific web page so that everybody knows what is needed is they may put like an asterisk next to the specific required fields. So this way you know that it's required. All right, we need to put in a name. Okay. So we put in Josh. So then we put in, let's say, let's just say, that's his email. Giorgio. Okay, now we have our information put in. We can click that sign up button there. And then it goes through to whatever the next page is. And maybe another page that says, thanks. And maybe a page that specifically gives a output of, okay, Josh and the email, thanks for submitting this form. We'll be in touch, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said at the beginning, next week we're also going to do quite a bit with Java. And like I said, I'll post an example video of a specific on-click. But in next week's folder, and you're more than welcome to start on this, you have this JavaScript assignment. So you're asked, by viewing the following HTML file using JavaScript, submit a Word file explaining what is occurring. So I'm actually going to pull up our HTML editor and post that code in, and hopefully it runs and you can more or less see what's happening. So you have that basic on-click with a pop-up that's going to say, click here to visit my website. So when we run, what do you think is going to happen when I click here to visit my website?
It's going to open up that website at courses.shu.edu.
Yep. So I click it, it creates a pop-up with that specific web page. So you should notice that from the pop-up window, window.open. Okay, we have a URL. It's a pop-up window. I set the height and width, left and top. That's where it showed up here. And then I assigned a specific URL to that pop-up. What's going to pop up when you click that text? Like you saw when I clicked it, okay, it's 300 pixels high, it's 700 pixels left. So it's 50 pixels from the left, 50 pixels from the top. So for that specific JavaScript assignment, you're going to create a Word file explaining what that code did, which we just talked through. Also in next week's folder, which is due Monday, December 11th, is the project Dropbox. So that's where you're going to put your specific link to your website. Then below that is the project presentation. That's where you're going to submit your PowerPoint that you're going to present our last class on the 12th of December. You're going to have an intro slide with your name and info. You're going to have slides describing your project proposal. You're going to have slides describing your project Or you could pull up the website itself and explain it. Then there's slides describing any issues you have. You're going to do a 10-minute presentation on that. You should be as close to 10 minutes as you can. Your presentation is graded on, okay, is it good? Is it professional? Are you keeping interest? You want to avoid and you're just going to pause instead. Take a deep breath. Keep eye contact with the audience. Avoid swaying of arms, toe tapping, other distractions, etc. So due to the setup in that classroom we were moved into, everybody has a laptop they can bring, right? So I'll
Yeah.
bring in the HDMI cable, plug it into the screen, and everybody will just come up and I'll sit in the front row and you guys can just click on your laptop and go through your specific presentation. Way back in the 9.5 folder, I've given you examples. If you click on examples of project PowerPoints for presentation, way back in the 9.5 folder, it'll open this link with specific examples. As you see, they're like 8 slides, 7 slides, 13 slides. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. So here's an example. Okay, you have your title slide. Okay, there's some info from the project proposal, my intro. There's an example. In that one, they pulled up an Instagram account of what the company actually is. But you can have it be much smaller too. Here's another example. Just a simple presentation. Okay, here's my introduction. Here's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's the deliverables. Here's the processing cost. Okay, I pull up my website and describe it. And then I talk about the specific issues. So it can be, 7 slides, 6 slides, 8 slides. You might want to make it a little more slides and go specifically by having your, okay, here's one page on the website and have it be an image. Here's another page and have it be an image. Or you could just pull the website up itself. Either or works perfectly fine. So like I said, you want to have 10 minutes associated with that. And like I said, in the last folder, there's this podcast assignment. Since there's technically no homework for this week, you're more than welcome to jump ahead and do that podcast assignment that's not due until December 18th. You're free to work on your website itself this week. It's entirely up to you. But when you're doing the podcast assignment, if you go back to our last class meetings, second PowerPoint there, the last couple slides there give you examples of where you can find specific podcasts you might want to listen to write that little 1 to 2 paragraph response for the podcast assignment. And last but not least, I graded all of the proposals that were due yesterday. Most of you did pretty well. I think the lowest was 125 out of 150, which is pretty good. So now I'm just looking forward to seeing specifically what you guys are going to submit there. So like I said, in the folder next week, project is where you're going to submit that link to whatever your page is, your project, your website. So let's say Dylan's is what, hoppymd.com. So you'd put that in when you submit it. I'm pretty sure I suggested all of you use Wix. Some of you, it sounds like you're more interested and more involved, you may be purchasing a domain. That's fine. You would submit that domain name. Then the project presentation, you would submit whatever your PowerPoint is, your Google Slides, whatever specifically you used to create that. And again, since I just covered that JavaScript assignment, you're more than welcome to jump ahead and do that and submit that, which is also in next week's folder. So are there any questions? We're getting into the nitty gritty here next week and then the week after that, and that's it. Are there any questions regarding any of the 4 remaining assignments? The JavaScript assignment that we'll talk about again next week, the podcast assignment that's due on the 18th of December, the project, your website itself, and the presentation that you're going to give this last class. No? Well, there are no questions on that. I bid everybody adieu and enjoy the rest of your evening and stay warm since it's nice and cold out tonight.
I have a question.
Okay?
Is the presentation gonna be online or in person?
In person.
Person? All right.
So you guys, like I said, there'll be the, in that classroom, we have just that front desk. You guys will bring a laptop. I'll have the HDMI cord to plug into your laptop. You'll present right from your laptop. I'll sit in like that front row or maybe where Dylan always sits and grade you accordingly. So the night should be pretty quick with 9 students, 10 minutes each. Hopefully get done in an hour and a half. All right. So if there are no other questions, I'll see everybody on Zoom next Tuesday.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Enjoy.
All right, take care.
Yeah.